If your ink's too slow and your nib won't flow, here's one of the places that you can go. Larry is here to see you through with Mr. Announcer and Cubby too. It's Larry's Fountain Pen Reviews.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Zoom Pen Hangout. And today's guest is going to be Diego, and I'd like to welcome Jesse and Miss Marilyn. How you doing, hon?
I just woke up. It's Sunday. How dare you?
Always good to have you. Okay, and Miss Marilyn, would you like to be another co-host today?
Sure.
Good. Hello, Jesse. Put Miss Marilyn as co-host.
You have to do it.
I got to do it. Okay. Yeah. I can't even do myself. Marilyn knows that already. Bless her heart, she has to put up with me.
I didn't even know until I woke up this morning at 9 o'clock. I just woke up and had a cup of coffee, so I might be a little discombobulated still. Hello, Diego. Hello, Jesse. How are you?
Pleasure.
I want y'all to meet Jesse. He's a friend of mine.
Hey, I'm Jesse. How we doing? What's going on? Let me move over here.
So, okay. So let's get the show started. And we will be having people drop in. So again, Diego is a gentleman that I've been waiting for. That what happened last time was my fault, the confusion. I had him down on the 23rd, and originally it's supposed to have been for today at 1. And for some reason, I took him off to 1. I don't know why, and left him on the 23rd. So it was my fault, and I apologize. But now it's all straightened out, I think. So, all right, Jesse. First of all, everybody, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Larry in Fort Worth, Texas.
And Ismail.
Jake in Fort Worth, and Jesse.
I'm Jesse from Fort Worth. I work at Starbucks. That's how me and Larry know each other.
I'm Miss Marilyn Darling. I live in Santa Ana, California.
I am Dan Roseberry. I live in Girard, Illinois. And it's awful glad to have somebody here that can tell us what the real Larry is before he has his first cup of coffee of the day.
Yeah. Well, Jesse knows, don't you, Jesse?
He walks in and just immediately starts yelling, and he's the same.
He's about like me.
Yeah, you gotta watch him before his coffee.
Yeah.
When he says yelling, he means yelling. Isn't that right, Jesse?
I literally mean like customers look like, who just walked in? We all stop what we're doing, like, oh, it's Larry.
Jake is the only one other here that really knows him better than you do.
Yeah.
Yes, but I've got this non-disclosure agreement going on.
How much is he paying you to not say anything? That's what we want to know.
Right.
That's one of the things we can't talk about.
And Jesse's the type of guy that knows me so well. He knows what I always drink. But sometimes if Jesse doesn't feel like making it, he'll just make what he wants and give it to me.
I'll order a vanilla latte. Sometimes I'll give him a cinnamon dulce or just whatever.
I'm a French roast guy myself. What can I say?
Hey,
You gotta change it up every now and then, otherwise you get bored.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, folks. All right, so now we're going to get back to Diego. All right, Mr. Diego, I'm going to turn the show over to you. Like to introduce yourself, where you're from, how your journey got started, the whole 9 yards. So take it away. It's yours.
Sure. It's kind of a long story. So I started writing, handwriting back in 2012. And I was doing it mainly as an exercise. I was doing really poorly in school, and it seemed like everything else in life was going down the drain. And I had met somebody over in Laguna Beach, California.
Oh,
kind of looked like Grogu there.
We're trying to take this guy seriously, Larry.
Yeah, he was a bit of a Jedi himself, and he introduced me to the idea. His name was Michael Lavery. If anyone wants to look this individual up, he introduced me to the idea of ambidextrous handwriting, so writing with both hands. And he told me to do cursive handwriting specifically, and with my left hand to do some mirror image writing, so to write backwards in cursive. And I thought, okay, that's a wacky idea, but at this point, I'm willing to try anything to improve my own cognitive ability so that I could do better in school. And so I started doing that. And I spent about a summer, 2-3 hours a day writing with both hands in cursive, and writing like that, you kind of start doing research, and next thing you know, you're in all these different rabbit holes. So fountain pens is one of the things that I fell into, and I saw a lot of Larry's videos early on, and and I also I got into kind of the penmanship world and the calligraphy world, and the American end of that, and all the history tied to the different styles of American penmanship. So that's kind of what leads me here today, and probably why Larry found me on YouTube, because a lot of my videos are about cursive handwriting and ambidextrous handwriting. And I have a few videos about fountain pens, but that's essentially why I'm here. I go by Diane Dual Pen, which is kind of like an abridged version of my.
You got to send us a link to this right away.
Yeah, they're on YouTube. If you search "improve your handwriting," they'll probably come up.
Nice.
So that's how I got here today, and I guess they brought me on as an authority on left-handed writing, which I'll happily pretend to be, but just know that I am a right-handed individual. I don't profess any sort of proficiency with the left hand. Most of my left-handed writing is done backwards, but I kind of experimented with the idea of, okay, well, how could I best learn to write forward as well as a left-handed person? And you see all these different ways that people who are left-handed write. They have the hook over the top of the writing, and all these different forms and grips, and I thought that was interesting. Sorry if there's loud noise in the background, by the way. I live on a pretty busy street here in California. But so I kind of started experimenting and seeing what would work best for me, and I think I found one of the more ideal ways of learning to write left-handed forward. So we could switch over to a view. I actually have a camera set up so you guys can see my table, and we could kind of go into some writing and see what that's like, and maybe you guys can join along. I've taught a lot of workshops on ambidextrous writing, so teaching people how to learn or initiate the process of mirror image writing with the opposite hand. And it's something that Leonardo da Vinci did. And I like to think that part of his genius was nurtured by one of these weird exercises that he did, the mirror image writing with his opposite hand. And ambidextrous skill development was actually really popular in the Renaissance era. Michelangelo was renowned for being able to paint with both hands. When he was painting the Sistine Chapel, which is the big ceiling painting, he would change hands as they got tired because he's looking up painting like this. So as he got tired, he would just switch hands and continue painting with the left hand. So I think it was a part of their training, and a lot of the skill, I think, can be attributed to the fact that they were developing both hands simultaneously. Before I switch over views here, I'd like to talk about something interesting with ambidextrous writing. There's this phenomenon. It's called inner transfer of manual skills. I think that's what it is.
Where you train your left brain to do the right brain things. Yep.
Yeah. And it's kind of an interesting phenomenon. They first found it, or where I saw it documented first, was in surgeons, training surgeons. So there's certain procedures that you have to do them with a right-handed dominance. Yeah. And the left-handed surgeons would be more proficient at the end of the training overall. And so they were wondering why this was, and it was because they were being forced to develop motor dexterity on their opposite side. And so the phenomena is that as you train the non-dominant side, your dominant side becomes more adept. And I've experienced that as well. As I learned to write left-handed, my right hand seemed to improve just alongside with it without any specific training or anything like that. Later on, I started doing penmanship exercises and studying some old books and developing those kinds of hands or scripts, you could say. And I developed more intentionally in my handwriting. But this phenomena, I think, is pretty cool. And a lot of people experience some pretty interesting things through ambidextrous handwriting. I taught for about 2 years, 2.5 years in the prisons here in Southern California, and I would teach a class on ambidextrous handwriting. A lot of the inmates found that I work with a lot of older populations in the prisons, people who had long-term drug addiction or things like that, and they found that there was some similarities between the type of high that you would get from the ambidextrous handwriting and the drugs that they, were having issues with. So it helped a lot of them kind of do something better with their lives. So we can switch camera views, and I'll show you a little bit about my handwriting.
Okay.
See that okay? Try to adjust the angle as we go along here.
Yeah, let me get my
So first, I'll just show you what my handwriting looks like. I have my Lamy 2000. It's the pen I keep inked up all the time, pretty much. One of my favorite pens. So my handwriting, just kind of like a standard cursive.
this. An example. Oh, okay.
So like I said, I've been writing for about 12 years. And this is just kind of the casual writing that I would use on everyday cases. Now with the left hand, like I had said, I write backwards primarily. So let's see, I can just kind of switch the camera angle here a little bit. All right. So with my left hand, it's going to be much slower. Even after 12 or 10 years now of writing with the left hand, it's not an agile hand. It's amazing how long it takes to kind of develop any sort of proficiency. But I'll go ahead and give you an example here. And then we can actually get into a little bit about how you can learn how to do this as well.
What do you mean actual backwards? Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, you write it backwards, and when you flip it, so for example, if I held this up to a mirror, you could see it really well.
I know this lady who can take sentences and they will write them forwards, but they will write them from the end of the sentence to the beginning of the sentence, which I thought.
Oh, how interesting. Yeah, I think I've heard of people doing that. Like you start here at the G, right? And
Yep.
yeah.
So you're writing, you're like flipping the
Mirror
word around?
image. Yep.
Yeah, so, and I'll give you some exercises here that'll kind of make it more clear.
I remember that is the first thing that I did when I was in kindergarten.
As you wrote backwards.
Yep. They made me go through all kinds of horrible tests because they thought I was dyslexic and my brain was on the wrong side. And
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Wait,
it was
okay.
it was a very interesting scenario back then.
So this is the mirror writing. It goes the opposite direction across the page. You can tell really easily that the slant is going the opposite direction. I think I can mirror this video feed. Let's see here. Transform.
You not.
Let's see if I do this. Now you can read my mirror writing.
Hey, what the?
You see that?
Wow,
This is an example of my mirror writing.
that is too cool.
Yeah, that is. What?
Wow.
It's a cool little parlor trick, yeah. So we'll switch back. And then, so left-handed forward writing, this is the style of writing I practice the least, but, and I have a whole video where I talk into detail why I decided to start writing left-handed forward this way. But, so my body is just below the paper, and I turn the paper entirely sideways to write forward.
Yeah.
And in part, the reason I do this is because the type of movement is easiest. So when you're developing the non-dominant side, finger movement is going to be your biggest challenge. This is the most motor dexterity, available to you. It's the dentist, you could say, like finest movements, right? Now let's go a step down from the fingers. The wrist, the hinge of the wrist is much easier of a movement. You can imitate it with the left hand very easily. So when I write sideways, and it's almost upside down, it's kind of like quarter, maybe a quarter upside down, a quarter sideways. I can take advantage of the wrist movement a lot more. I don't have to, if I'm writing with the page normally, I don't have to push up with my fingers. This kind of movement is much more challenging to develop. So in this way, I can write using the movement of the wrist to my advantage.
Wow.
Okay, that's very interesting.
The one challenge that comes with this is that you have to be able to visualize the letters somewhat upside down.
Right.
Right. You guys are all seeing them somewhat upside down, just as I'm seeing them. But with time, you kind of develop that.
I can't imagine doing calligraphy like that. I mean, I can, but
There are some very good calligraphers that write entirely upside down, who are
Wow.
left-handed. And it's because, like I'm saying, that the movement's a little bit more advantageous that way with your left hand.
Does that only apply to the left hand, or is that just a method that you can use to write, like in general?
You could do this with your right hand if you wanted to. So now that I've kind of have a good grasp on visualizing the letters and the way that they move in different ways, I can write upside down with the right hand. So
I can't get 3 letters in a row trying to. Whoa, this takes some concentration.
Okay, so
Is that a fine nib?
this is a fine nib, I believe. Yeah, it's either fine or medium. I forget. I'm pretty sure I would have got fine though. So this is my right hand, but I wrote this is my left. But it's upside down, right? So once you have a good grasp, and this is part of when I teach people how to write in mirror image, part of it is we want to learn how to visualize the letters in our head and their flow. And that's going to allow you to flip them around whichever way you want to. So if you can see the letter in your head, and then you can flip it, you can see how it flows the opposite direction. So I'll show you guys very quickly, well, not very quickly, we can take our time, we're in no rush, how we can start to go about learning mirror image writing without tracing. And I think without tracing part is really important. I always encourage my students to learn how to do this without tracing. So as you see, I just folded my paper in half, and now I have a crease in the center. And I'm going to go ahead and just put a line down that crease so it's a little bit more obvious to you guys. So on one side, I'm going to pretend that this crease is the edge of my paper. So on one side of this crease, I will write forward, and on the other side, I will write backwards. This is the edge of my paper. Now let's just start with the letter A as an example. Okay, so the letter A is a simple letter, just kind of like a half oval. And now let's start to understand better how we move through the letter. Right, this would be our starting point. We go in this direction. And we can use our crease as a reference point too. So we're kind of curving towards the crease, and then we curve away from the crease back towards the starting point. And then we check out of the letter like this. So that's kind of the broken down version of the letter A.
Oh,
We can even get closer here so you guys can see.
but so these skills that you've learned with the right hand, they're almost transferable to your left hand, right?
To an extent, the quality is always better with the right hand. But part of the theory is that as you develop them with the left hand, your right hand is going to become even more proficient with them. So we have the broken down version of the letter A, and these arrows are going to help us understand how to do it backwards. So one of the things that's pretty important when you're doing this is you don't just mirror your writing. So for example, with my right hand, my page is angled convenience my right hand, to convenience the slant of my writing with my right hand. And the other thing is I have a big desk here, so a lot of real estate for my arm to sit on the table. So there's a lot of support. And then the left hand also assists by holding the page for me while the right hand is writing. Now, when we switch hands, we have to rotate the paper the opposite direction so that we convenience the left hand. The slant is now in favor of the left hand. And then I have my arm on the table just as I did with the right hand. What you want to avoid is being at the edge of your table and like your hand can barely fit. A lot of times we don't consider all the elements that make it easier for the right hand. So it's important to look at all of that. So here with the left hand, we start at this point here, more or less, right? And my first line starts curving towards the edge of the paper, towards the crease here, towards our reference line. So I will start going in that direction. And then I'm just going to go ahead and stop there and put an arrow. So now I have an arrow that mirrors what we see there. And then the next line continues up back to the starting point. Okay, so we're going to go up like that. And then we check out of the letter by going down and then away from the reference line, right? Okay, so now we have a rough letter A in mirror image. So now the goal is to do that all in one swoop. So we will move towards the reference line, curve away from the reference line back to the starting point, and then out. And there we have our letter A in mirror image, right? So this is a technique that I use. The A is a fairly easy letter to do it with. But then you have letters like the letter P. And the lowercase p is a challenge for a lot of people. So the lowercase p is a little bit more complicated. So we go up away from the reference line, down, and then curve back towards the reference line. So we can draw some arrows, kind of indicating where we're going. And then we got to cross over our stem there, and then loop away and back towards, meet here, and then check out of the letter. A little bit more complicated of a letter. So then going backwards, we can see we start moving away, move towards the line, curve back towards it, close, and open.
Wow.
So, we're just moving the opposite direction. And this kind of helps initiate the process of seeing the movement and the flow of the letters in your head. And once you have that down, you can flip it any direction you want, right? Okay, we want to do the letter P upside down. We know that we have to go something like that.
Wow.
Or if we wanted to do it backwards and upside down, we know that we have to do something like this, right?
Hey, Dan,
So-
I'm sure that we don't believe in reincarnation, but I think we're looking at Leonardo da Vinci here.
No, I don't take any sort of credit to that degree. It's just I have too much time on my hands. So I've taught myself how to do this.
I mean, this is some skill. So I'm wondering, like, are there specific techniques that tap into specific parts of your brain? Like if I were to choose specifically to work on writing in mirror letters, trying to, like the first example that you did, as opposed to doing it backwards or doing it mirrored and backwards.
Right.
Are there specific techniques that teach you specific things?
I'm not sure I understand your question entirely. Do you mean like specific exercises or how?
Yeah,
does
I
this
guess, is
affect
there
the
one that
brain?
you would start with? I mean, did you start with mirroring?
Yeah, so that's what I did. The guy advised that I just kind of go for it, and he showed me a technique similar to this to understand them backwards. But actually, the very first thing I did was I think I covered about 6 pages front and back of just the letter L, which is just a loop like this, right? And I do it like this, and really all this is doing is just kind of getting my brain accustomed to seeing the page the opposite direction, from right to left. So I just did that over and over again, and it accustomed my hand to moving in a continuous flow. And then from there, I just started writing. And I still have samples of my earliest writing from 2012. It doesn't look like this, and it changes over time. You will see the progress. I would say fairly quickly as well. Every 3 months, I could see that there was a really distinct change in my writing as it flowed. Now, maybe this is kind of like in line with what your question is asking. There are certain things that my left hand can do better than my right hand. And in part of that is because the two brains operate differently, right? I'll draw some pictures here to make it easier to visualize. So we have our two brains. We have the right brain and the left brain. So let's say that this is your right brain, this is your left brain. And then when it comes down to your hands, the right brain controls the left hand and the left brain controls the right hand. Now, the two brains operate in unison all the time. The way we perceive the world is the right brain takes in sensory input, the light, the color of things, the shape of things, shadow, sound, smell, taste, all of that is being taken in by the sensory input of the right brain. And the left brain is telling you what it is. So the right brain is more analytical. It categorizes information. Where the right brain is spatial, the left brain is analytical. So the two work in unison to help you understand your environment, your place in it, and also help you understand it through language so you can communicate it to someone else. So the right brain, because it's spatial in nature, I'm fairly proficient at writing on blank sheets of paper, very straight across the page with my left hand. My left hand, for some reason, and I always practice on blank sheets of paper, so maybe because of that as well, but I can write very straight across blank sheets of paper with my left hand, where my right hand, I really have to put a lot of effort into doing it straight across the page, where the left hand seems to kind of just do it intuitively. Now, as far as what's happening when you do this, our brain, say this is the top of our brain here, right? We have a motor cortex right along the top of the brain, right? Kind of like this general area. And one side, like I said, controls the right, the other side controls the left brain. Now, our dominant side, so if you're right-handed, your left brain, let's put L here and R here. If you're right-handed, your left brain has a very strong network of neural pathways that go from the source, so the motor cortex, down to the hands. And that includes neurons, that includes synapses, which are like places where the neurons have gaps and they send currents through synapses. So these areas are all very well developed. So your neural pathways are like a cord. And then you have an outer core, which is called myelin. It's like a white matter.
I think you're moving into a realm of technicality that's beyond our conception.
Beyond our
I mean,
conception.
not mine because I'm a physician, but general.
Yeah. Well, it kind of helps to understand though, like what's happening when you're, because you'll feel strained by these exercises, right? I've had people
And
tell
you'll
me, oh, I got
understand why, exactly.
tingling on the top of my brain, or I feel tired or out of breath. And it's because you're using a lot of energy to do this. So to build these pathways, you have to essentially
use them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to use the pathways, and you burn a lot of energy to development. Is similar to having a workout and developing muscles to do something that they couldn't do. So all of this is taking place as you're learning to write with the left hand, which is going to unlock new areas of say energy output that could potentially be transferred into new thoughts, right? Like creative thoughts and ideas that might come out of these new pathways being forced to activate. So it's really a fun process, and it's a long one. It's not one that's going to like, oh, I will spend a weekend doing this and then I will experience this. It's kind of like a lifetime pursuit that can, be a part of everything you do in some way or another. But this is how I started, Jesse, to kind of answer your question, was with loops. And it's just to essentially build up some sort of understanding in the hand, like a kinetic understanding of how our body works and how we can use it to a certain advantage as it pertains to handwriting. But it's helped me in a lot of different ways as well. Like I said, when I first started doing this, I was failing out of college. Essentially, I had like a 0.9 GPA at one point in one of my quarters. Like, I was doing really bad. I was like signing contracts saying, I will do my best to do better because otherwise they'll kick me out, kind of thing. And this kind of changed everything. All of a sudden, if you spend an hour a day writing left-handed, you're going to find that the amount of focus that takes is going to translate into other areas of your life. So because I could sit down and focus on writing with my left hand for an hour, sitting down in a class and just listening to somebody talk became a lot easier. And I could retain that information better. And I could come back and take tests studying half as much as I was prior and ace those tests without having any sort of issues. And another thing that I encourage, once you've kind of got a grasp on the writing, is to write in complete sentences. So don't just practice letters over and over, but get to the point where you're writing about your day and you're journaling in left hand and saying that I had a wonderful day, and that you're now putting your thoughts down in this really high, intense movement, essentially. And I found that handwriting is one of the most interesting ways to work out the body and the mind together, because it's one of the few movements that directly translates into some sort of language. Running or walking is a workout and stress on the body, but so is handwriting with the opposite hand. But this is tied directly to language. So for me, kind of working in an academic environment, it's been really beneficial for me because I can use language to my great advantage in my work. So writing left-handed, it'll benefit you in any line of work because communication is really important anywhere you go. So having a good grasp on that is valuable. And I think mirror image writing is a fun way of getting a better grasp on language. So yeah, that was a very long answer to your question, Jesse. But yeah, if anyone else has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
This might be a little off the wall, but have you ever used both hands at the same time?
Oh yeah, I've done that.
Without the angle, obviously, you'd have to go straight ahead, like like that.
Yeah, you do. Here, let me grab another pen. Hold on.
You mean grab a pen using both hands and writing?
Two pens, one in each hand.
Dueling pen.
Writing.
Most people don't understand how I make my hearts.
This may be...
Yeah, that works.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's a great example. So this is actually hold on, let me see. Okay, Dan, this is a trick that I use sometimes teaching with really tough letters, and don't hate me for using a ballpoint pen here, but
that's what I'm using.
It's anathema, but we'll
all right, cool. Okay, cool. I'm not the only one. So think of a conductor in an orchestra. He moves his hands, and although it's not in unison, if you do it to kind of mime a conductor, you're moving your hands in unison. So if you, without thinking about it, go ahead and write a letter. So say we're going to write the letter K. We're going to write the letter K with the right hand, and I'm just going to let my left hand follow. And you go ahead and do this on your sheet, and you will find that the left hand will easily follow and create whatever letter you're doing mirror image.
Yeah.
And I've had some rare cases where some students can't actually do this, but in most cases people can do this very easily. So your left hand will just follow whatever your right hand does, and you will be able to mirror write whatever it is that you were attempting to mirror write. It's kind of a cool trick.
Yeah.
And there you go. There's the K. Yeah. Fantastic.
I drummed for years of percussion, and there's a lot of rudiments that you play. And one of the things about a drummer is they learn to use both hands doing the same thing. So you teach the right-handed person teaches the left one how to do it by like a paradiddle then that kind of thing. So to use both hands at the same time, that's how I use my right hand to teach my left hand how to do that, and including the emphasis.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, that's why I asked you that question, because I kept thinking about that. Maybe should a student try to learn that way first, or just try it just what you were talking about first?
Well, it's something that I encourage people to do, is that when you're writing, kind of like what you're saying, teaching the opposite hand, and that it's a technique I use now for everything. So I'll pick up a ukulele and I'm learning how to strum correctly.
Mhm.
Okay, well, let's try it left-handed. Like, let's go back to the right hand and see
Yeah.
and going back and forth helps me pick it up a little bit quicker. So when I'm writing with the right hand, I'm looking, how am I holding the pen? How's my hand resting on the page? Where is the movement coming from when I write? And then I can apply that also to the left hand.
Yeah, cool.
So the goal is ultimately to do it independently of either hand, because I think that's a little bit more challenging, but you can use the hand to inform the other hand. Yeah.
Wow.
And I think that's also like a really important learning technique in life, is the ability to observe and see keenly what is happening and then apply it, right?
I have a question for you. How about if you're writing in foreign language?
Oh, yeah.
That would be, I think, something kind of hard to do, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so I took Arabic in college, and I don't remember much of it, but I remember how to write my name. And Arabic goes across the opposite side of the page, or it goes across in the other direction, right? So this is what my name looks like in Arabic. So I for a time, and I don't know how well I can do it anymore, but I would try to write my name in Arabic and then simultaneously write my name in
Oh my.
That hurts me just looking at it.
yeah. You kind of have to like find where the movements are similar, and you can kind of take advantage of that. But
oh wow.
I think Thomas Jefferson was somebody who could write in French and English, or it was either French and English or French and Latin simultaneously. I believe Harry S. Truman could also write with both hands in two different languages simultaneously.
Wow.
So we're not the only ones with too much time on our hands, but I think there's something tied to a person's ability to communicate effectively and having these weird abilities with the hand. Sorry about the fire truck. I don't know if you guys can hear all that, but I live right across the street from a fire station, so it's like it's just background noise to me now.
So the name that you wrote in Arabic, is that backwards, or oh no, you said in that language it is written in that direction.
Right. Yeah. So in Arabic, that's correct. Yeah. And so it's a fun exercise, and I took Arabic for that main reason, was that they write the opposite direction, and I wanted to learn the calligraphy from that language. But I've lost a lot of it now. It's been maybe half a decade since I'd done any of that.
What do you do in academia now?
I work for a university museum.
Oh, wow.
So I run an education program there, and then I manage like behind the scenes collection stuff.
Awesome. Yeah.
So that's my tie there, and I'll every once in a while, because there's not very many people who can teach mirror image writing, I'll run a workshop through the university, for people, and I think it's really valuable, especially for incoming students, to find positive ways to spend their time rather than sit in front of a television. Yeah. Cool. Is there any letters does anybody wants to see, or any?
I was wondering, can you, just for the heck of it, do the alphabet?
Yeah, of course. Got a fresh sheet of paper.
And so
all in mirror image, right?
Oh gosh.
Good luck.
Yeah. Well, while he's setting up, I want to point out here that Larry's wearing a very bland shirt today.
Eat your heart out.
Mod. We used to call that mod.
How about we this?
before you even like get proficient with left hand, you started out just trying to write in cursive, right? Instead of just kind of blocky or however the generic English language is written.
Yeah, well, luckily I had learned cursive really young. I learned it in kindergarten. So I already had a fairly decent grasp on cursive writing. And then and I stopped as soon as they told you could choose between print and cursive. So I never wrote cursive again. But then when he told me that I should write in cursive, I decided to do so. Part of it is that when you write in cursive, all the letters string together.
Right.
So if you're writing your thoughts out, you're doing a lot of multitasking because you're writing the letter without picking up the pen, or writing the word without picking up the pen. You're thinking about the word that follows, the sentence that word is a part of, and the thought in its entirety. And then you're doing all this while you're writing. So I think it's really valuable to actually write in cursive in and of itself.
Mhm.
And then adding the mirror image component to it is a whole nother ball game. So we'll go big A, little a.
Wow.
We good on focus? Another thing that I like about mirror image writing with the opposite hand is that it forces you to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to join you and write with you, and it looks like chicken scratches.
We all start there. We all start there.
It's okay, Larry. Keep working on it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'm not even going to show you mine. Mine's awful.
Marilyn, yeah, Marilyn's doing a good job.
Yeah, you are.
Well, she's cheating anyway because she knows.
Hey,
I'm not
she's tracing.
cheating.
He said not to trace.
You already know calligraphy.
This is backwards. If you look at,
But you have more hand control.
no, look,
Oh.
it's backwards.
You're still doing a good job.
Oh, yeah,
Marilyn.
that's really
This
good.
is normal writing here,
Yeah.
and this
yeah.
is backwards. I just have it flipped on my camera so I can see what I'm doing.
You're doing good, Marilyn.
Oh, I see. Oh, smart.
It's still not great, but
So you're on K right now? Yeah. E, F, G, H, I.
You're just so easy.
My brain doesn't want to do this.
Wait, H, I, J, K, L.
Now,
Yeah,
Diego, is
yeah.
writing left-handed like you're doing now as easy as it would be if you were using your right hand?
No, this is more difficult.
So
I
you
mean,
have to be more patient and more control of that left hand.
Yeah, it does force me to slow down. Yeah.
And I
my
mean,
right
you're
hand-
also doing it in mirror image. Which,
Yeah.
you know,
You know
doesn't-
what was funny is when I first started doing this, I could write mirror image fairly well. It didn't look that good, but I knew how to get through all the letters. But if I went back and read it, I had a hard time. I couldn't read it that well. It took me about 6 months of writing left-handed in mirror image to have a grasp on reading it in mirror image. Funny as that is.
Yeah.
I'm thinking there might be some sort of neural pathway difference. I'm not sure. Would you say that you're writing or more like drawing?
Hey, that's a good question. Yeah, it does feel like drawing sometimes. And when I teach this class, we would start with some writing, and then we would also do coloring with both hands, and then that would translate into drawing, and then we would use the shapes of the letters to make drawings because those are the movements we have been developing.
That's what Leonardo always said.
What was that?
Because that was what you just said. That's what Leonardo always said about the colors and the
Oh,
Da Vinci.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
you
not
said that he used to
familiar.
do that.
Oh, how interesting. I've never seen that quote before. I'd like to read
Maybe
it.
it was like Michelangelo.
Oh, like in that you're using movements like letters in your
Yeah,
painting?
you said he painted with both hands and everything.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they did. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
I
I
was
mean,
trying to be funny. I sounded just stupid instead. I
no,
tried. I
you're,
really tried.
Q, this is R.
it's okay. Maybe I was the one that was slow there.
All right. So if someone wants to start learning cursive, where do they start?
Right. Good question.
Well, you would start-
ZenarianCollege.com.
yeah, that's a good place to start.
Palmer method.
Yeah.
What we had
Oh,
growing up in
God, that looks
school
really
for
bad.
learning cursive was they had around these little bands, little paper bands, all the way around the ceiling of the classroom. It was always there,
Oh yeah.
and they showed you
Oh.
with printing how to do each capital and then small letter, and then with cursive each one. And so you saw that all the time.
Yeah.
So if you had a picture of cursive handwriting, I think you could look at it and then learn. That's what we do. The teacher would have us look at it and then try to do an A and all that.
See what you mean? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The schools are letting the kids down today, not teaching them cursive.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
yeah, I agree.
it's too bad.
Yeah.
I think.
Wow. That's impressive.
All right.
Mhm.
And Z.
Wow.
So yeah, this might be a little bit easier than writing like a sentence. So
Mhm.
I really encourage people that the end goal here is to journal and to write your thoughts out in mirror image writing, because that's where you'll see how challenging the whole act is. And a lot of my writing, even today, I'll make mistakes. I'll write the same word twice, or I'll miss an entire word, and you go back and you read the sentence and you see how many grammatical errors you have in your writing, because you're focusing so much on the act of writing. So I always encourage people that's the end goal. We want to be able to journal our thoughts out.
So the idea behind having the paper curved is because like cursive in itself is curved, and we're just saving ourselves like the trouble of having to write at an angle, and instead the paper's at an angle, right? Or
Oh, right. You're talking about the slant, right?
right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you can write vertically. Actually, if you go back and you look at some of the content that was produced in the early 1900s around handwriting, there's a lot of different styles. And vertical script was a pretty popular style as well, especially it was taught in a lot of schools. So if your preference is to write vertically, you can. There's nothing wrong with that. It comes down to preference at some point. So if you have a preference for the aesthetic of a slanted writing, you might want that. And there is a happy middle ground there. If it's too slanted, it's going to be hard to read. So you don't want to slant too much. But I think the right amount of slant will make it a little bit more legible. And it's interesting that you brought up dyslexia, Marilyn. I had read something, and I forget where this is from. It was a study where the slant in cursive helped prevent dyslexia because it was harder to flip the letters in your mind if they're all at a slant. Flipping them would cause them to slant the other way. So I don't know how much validity there is to that, or if anything with that has changed.
That's right. They believe that people, if they can see the axis on a certain direction, that it changes from being an art side to a logical side.
Oh, how interesting. Okay.
And they use logic instead of their art side.
Oh, yeah. And so the spatial side is what flips it, right? And makes it more challenging to read. Yeah. Yeah, so there may be something kind of utilitarian to having that slant as well, right?
Exactly.
You know. Cool.
Plus, it looks pretty.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. So we'll go ahead.
There's a time and a place for, upright script, but there's also time and a place for slanted script. And some people get really slanty when they're writing quickly.
Mhm.
Ask Larry how slanty mine are.
No,
Yeah,
Marilyn.
some handwritings are so slanted, they're hard to read, aren't they?
Mm.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, it can be.
Marilyn has some beautiful handwriting. Really, she just knocks it out of the park. It's
Oh,
really
thanks.
lovely.
Who's that?
Me.
Marilyn,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
she really does. No, for real. She it's really nice.
I try and have nice handwriting now, especially because when I was growing up, my handwriting was so bad. And later on in life, like when it started going away, I was like, I have all of these notebooks. What am I going to do with them now? Just
Yeah.
sit around and collect dust. Well, a friend of mine introduced me to fountain pens, and that's where it all took off.
That's awesome. Wow. So you're essentially, Diego, writing vertical. However, the page is just slanted. So then it comes out slanted, right?
To an extent, yeah. I think the slant also kind of plays to the advantage of the movement. So, for example, let me see if I can zoom out a little bit. When I'm writing, you can see that I'm using the hinge of the wrist to my advantage. So the page is slanted, and you can kind of see the guidelines through the page. But as I move my wrist, it follows that slant line. So if I write and I use the movement of the wrist, it just follows that slant line.
Right. It's matching the slant. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Calligraphy theory is that if you put your hands, where are my hands? If you put your hands together and you release them, that should be your natural slant line. So you want to make sure that your paper is on that natural slant line. So that way you don't have to use all of the muscles to go this way instead of just pulling naturally down.
Mhm.
And there's like a whole plethora of things that people will tell you, oh, this is right, oh, this isn't right. So, you know what? Do whatever makes you comfortable, do
Yeah.
whatever makes it look pretty, and do whatever makes you happy. Because in the end, it really
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, we
But
have
it is always very interesting to see the way that different artists do their different
Like,
creative.
when Marilyn gets my letter in the mail, she has to take it to a translator.
I do not. I do have to put my eyeballs on though.
She goes, what on earth is Larry saying? My Lord.
There have been very few times when I couldn't read your writing.
He has to just call Larry, like, dude, just
You-
tell me what you were trying to say.
I really should show you this lady that I write to in Germany. Her T's look like an up slant and a down slant and a whippity woo. And I'm like, what? And her H's look like they're almost backwards. It's so weird.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Diego, have you used fountain pens with different nibs and find is there a particular size nib that works best for you?
Yeah, well, if I sit down and do writing at this table for myself, a lot of times I'm writing with a dip pen rather than a fountain pen. I love kind of like the aesthetic of fountain pens, and I have a lot that just they never get inked, but I love them because they're beautiful and the craftsmanship and also the mechanism of them. But as far as preference in point, a finer point tends to suit my writing a little bit better. I did have a very juicy, bold point Lamy that I loved because it looked great in print. So, it depends what kind of style of writing we're going for. And, maybe I'll choose a bold point over a fine point. I do have one pen that was altered by John Mathias at nibs.com. And I told him specifically what I wanted, which was a nib that could write equally as well with left or right hand. And I want it like extra fine. So I do have that pen that is probably one of my favorites to write with. But yeah, I think it kind of depends what I'm planning on doing with the pen that determines which point I like best. But typically I will lean towards a fine point.
Cool.
Now, does anybody else have any more questions?
I do, Diego. So when somebody is first learning how to write cursive, what is your suggestions on how to start, and like the steps 1, 2, 3, or 4? What do you recommend?
Yeah, the first thing we do is the kind of split page exercise, where we're just kind of understanding what it is we're doing with the mirror writing. And from there, the first goal is to write your name in mirror image. And a lot of times people will say, man, I am horrible at this. And so I will tell them to hold the paper up to the light and look through the backside at their mirror writing. And in that way, you can see your mirror writing forward. Because a lot of times when we're trying to decipher what we've done in mirror image, our brain can't recognize the symbols. So we don't know how good or bad it actually is. By either putting it in the mirror and seeing it forward, or holding it to the light and looking through the backside of the paper, you can see, oh, it's not as bad as I thought it was. And that will be encouraging for them. So they can continue to move forward, and then they will look in the mirror again and say, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And then you move forward from there. But once they leave the classroom, I recommend that you practice at least 20 minutes a day to continue to build the motor connections necessary to improve. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, check it out. Look what I just printed.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Very nice. I like that.
Hang this boy up right here.
Again.
There
Let me
you
see
go,
that
yeah.
again. Hold it up for a while. Wow, you did that?
I didn't do it. I printed it.
Oh, you printed it. Okay.
Yeah.
See, that's what we had on our boards in the schoolroom, except for it's all one thing, you know.
Yeah.
Right. And look, see, this right here is why I asked about like the angle, because it's saying that left-handed you do it at a certain angle, and right-hand you do it at that other angle. And I guess that's what gives it the curve.
Yeah.
Same with over here.
Yeah.
Remember this in school?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Very similar.
Yep.
Oh yeah, nice. That's a nice one.
Right-handed. Oh, and then we're going down. Right. Okay. I see what it's saying.
And believe it or not, I even try doing this at times, just for fun.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
my writing here isn't too bad.
Oh, that's great.
It's good.
It's
Yeah.
not
It's
too bad.
legible.
Yeah, but by the time Marilyn gets my letter, it's way beyond that. It comes like from Alien.
All right, well, do you want me to show him your letter? I'll
No,
show him.
no,
Come
no.
on. Now, don't be shy.
no.
You know, your writing, Larry.
It's
reminds
almost
me-
legible.
Hey, that's not bad at all.
Horrible.
Come on, look at
You should show him my letter. The first few lines are like really beautifully done in calligraphy, and then my wrist starts to cramp,
Yeah.
and then it goes to crap in a handbasket.
Well, your letters are always beautiful. I mean, it's like I'm eating my heart out. I said, doggone it.
I can always start to tell where my hand starts to hurt. It starts out really nice, and then by the time I get to the end of the page, I can't even read what I'm writing.
I can.
Alexa, stop.
So, Diego, anything else you would like to add? That
Herbal goop.
Well, your writing, Larry, it reminded me of something. that one of the things I think is beneficial early on, and maybe this will help you too, Jesse, but writing big. Write big because it's going to help you understand the shapes of the letters and also your hand understand the motion. And as you kind of build proficiency, you can shrink down the size of your writing from there.
I would encourage everyone to go to CVS and buy both of the wide ruled notebook paper and the college ruled notebook paper. And when you first start out doing calligraphy, to use two lines to do on the wide rule, and then work down to 2 lines on the college rule, and then do 1 line on the wide rule and 1 line on the college rule. And you'll get miniaturization, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
You can miniaturize your perfections, and that helps. Or if you have to go even bigger than that, use the whole page if you have to.
Yeah. Well, okay, folks, does anybody else have any questions right now?
No, that was very interesting.
Yeah, this is
I want
awesome.
to thank you, Diego. Yeah.
Thank you
Oh, it's my
so
pleasure.
much.
Before we leave, do you know how to draw?
Do I know how to draw?
Yeah.
Well, I can draw. Well, it's not necessarily,
Now, I was just wondering if you use any of this work and you
Transfer it.
with drawing.
Well, I have made drawings using letters. There is something I like to do actually. I'll show you. Right here in this corner of the page. But using the shapes of letters to kind of create abstract forms. So, for example, we have the letter L, and then maybe we turn the page upside down, and then we draw the letter L on top of that in mirror image. And then from there, you can kind of expand and create weird shapes.
That's cool.
Dang.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah.
I do have some artworks that have been made with that technique, and
Wow, that is so interesting. That's almost like cheating, almost. But that is such a slick idea to like make designs like that. Just write it in letters and like mirror it. Wow.
Yeah, I did a series of photographs where I would cut paper out in those shapes, and maybe they were different words, and then I'd cast the shadow onto a body and take the photograph.
Wow.
So I've experimented. It's been kind of a theme in a lot of the work that I've made in the past. But I wouldn't say I draw well in any sense.
Right. That's awesome.
Well, okay. Any more questions for Mr. Diego before we split?
Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you so much for coming.
Oh yeah, it's my pleasure.
We can
Thank
get you to
guys
come
for
and hang
attending.
out with us on Pen Zoom Hangout.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
thank you.
he's
Look, that
going to be
looks
back
wonderful.
later. Yeah.
Hey, look at that.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, he'll be back later during this year. So with that said, Diego, thank you for taking the time to coming on Zoom Hangout. And thank you to everybody else that took the time to come out as well.
Thank you, Larry.
I know I had a lot of fun. Very
This is a
interesting.
lot of fun.
Good information.
Great.
And I can barely write right-handed, more or less left-handed. So,
I know. I can
so
barely-
anyway, so we're going to hang it up. A lot of peace and love, and then we're going to let Jesse end our Zoom with a prayer.
Yes, I'd love to. Okay. Lord, thank you for Diego. Thank you for what you've done in him, through him. Thank you that you've made him proficient at something and that you've made him a teacher, Lord, and that you've bestowed wisdom on him so that he could share it with the next generation, that he could build them up, Lord. And I just thank you for the work that takes years in someone that you let others have in just a class, Lord. I just thank you for that build up, that process that you've allowed Diego to go through and give him the strength to go through. Lord, I just pray that you would continue to bless him in his writing and his works, his photography, his drawings, everything he's doing. Lord, whoever is under his influence, I pray that he would find you and have a good influence from you, so that whatever we're getting from him is from a good source, Lord. And I just bless everyone in this chat, in this call as well. And I pray that we would all just have an amazing rest of the day this Sunday. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
A lot of peace and love to each and every one of you. Be kind to a stranger out there, my friends. And remember, please don't text and drive. And we're out of here. Talk to you guys. I'll be on at 4, double Zoom today.
Oh boy. See you then.
Yeah. Bye-bye, y'all.